Welcome to the Divine Feminine Revolution podcast, where women are magical and empowered. I'm your host, Dr. Megan Monday, psychologist turned transformational feminine business coach. This podcast is for you if you want to prioritize your own pleasure, face your fears, and manifest your desires. This podcast is sponsored by the Fearless Feminine Academy, where I teach women how to turn their trauma into their superpowers. My goal is to show women that we can heal our world by creating time and financial freedom by doing whatever the fuck we want. Are you ready for the divine feminine revolution? Let's get vulnerable and go deep. I'm so honored that you're here. Hey everyone, welcome to the Divine Feminine Revolution podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Megan Monday, and I have one of my favorite people, the amazing Avila Langen, the one and only. So I'll just turn it over to you and give us your best brag intro, which you know that it's got to be, the stakes are high for you.
Am I allowed to swear?
You are.
Okay, good. Perfect. I brag that my coaching business has toppled 250,000 in sales in 15 months since I opened the doors. What? I know everybody loves to hear the numbers, and I'm like, kind of whisper them. So this is like the loudest place I've said them. Oh my gosh, Megan, how did you do that to me? You challenged me.
Well, you are queen of brags, you come by it honestly, and you've, created, you've been one of my coaches, and you've definitely turned me on to the brag culture, like in the hottest, most empowering, amazing way.
Thank you. I'm so glad because it's so good, and we need more brags. We need all the beautiful brags and all the ownership of what we've done, right? It's just the truth. Right? And it's just saying the truth out loud and letting others witness you in it. I brag that I have an amazing husband. He's very supportive, although I do set good boundaries with him. So I have,
all right.
Yes, I have to. I brag that I set those boundaries when I need to. And I brag that I've got 3 little ones, and they're just growing and developing and so loving. And I brag that I took a bath with my youngest, my little daughter, the other night. We were just like snuggling and looking into each other's eyes, and it was so beautiful and amazing. I brag that I am in mid-launch with my mastermind right now, and it's already more than 50% sold out. And I brag that I'm getting a lot of referrals this round, which is like a next level, juicy, beautiful, like practice of receiving and being like, is this okay? But I brag I'm doing the work to like settle myself and like allow myself to receive in this way, because I could very easily like self-sabotage myself in this scenario and think of like all the ways that I shouldn't be doing this, or it's not okay, or oh my goodness. So I brag that I'm receiving, but it's not totally easy. It's not as easy as one would think. Yeah.
Yeah, I totally feel that. Like we were talking about in the green room, today is my official launch for the podcast, and it just like kind of hit me yesterday. I was actually doing this blue celestial healing, which is like, it just like lit up my nervous system, and the podcast is launching, and all of these like amazing things are happening. And I thought of what you would say, which was go get in the bath. Which is what I immediately did. And I just felt like you were saying with your daughter, like I just felt like a little baby, like in the little like waters of the bath. And, it does like get to be this good, which I think is like one of the most powerful things that is a big part of your message and your teachings, and that you like really do get to have it all.
You do get to have it. And I love that you just went and comforted yourself in those warm waters, like a little womb room, right? Like it can just be your comfy, sacred space where you can float around and feel good, because we need that to support ourselves in our expansion, even when our expansion is good and what we want and what we desire and we've been working towards forever and calling in. Right? There's still kind of that like disruption of your system that needs its support. Yeah, good job.
Thanks. So tell us a little bit about your own story. Like, how did you transform into this like beautiful goddess that you are today?
Oh my gosh, how far should I go back? Holy smokes.
Whatever you want to share with us.
I would say that a good place to just give a little nugget of the story is when I was in corporate, and I was actually really thriving and I loved my job and I worked my way up to the top of the company, making tons of money, working the overtime, commuting to the city in the tall building. And the thing about it is that I loved it so much, I didn't even really recognize how much I was burning myself out.
Mhm.
Because it was almost like an addiction, right? I was like, oh, this is so good. It feels so good. So I wasn't like hating my job and I didn't want out or anything like that. It's just I was disconnected and I was unaware, but my body was aware. And I had problems getting pregnant. I mean, we tried for like 3 years, and then I had multiple miscarriages. And then by the final pregnancy that ended up resulting in my son, my doctor pulled me out on emergency medical leave and was like, you gotta go home. You gotta go home and rest. And at first I was crying, oh my gosh, this job, and I just won an award for being number one, and la la la. And I love my people. This is the best job I ever had. And I just like packed up my desk, and I remember crying all the way home on BART. And then fast forward, I had the most beautiful pregnancy ever. It was lonely because everybody I knew was working. But through that loneliness, I needed to spend a lot of time with myself and getting quiet with myself and getting to know myself and tending to myself and entertaining myself and like all the things, right? So I think that like really beautiful cocooning period, even if it's like an hour a day, right? You don't need to have like 8 months like I had. But like, I think there's a really important message in there of slowing down every once in a while and resting, being intentional about it. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I think one of the best times of my self-care ever was when I was pregnant, and that was like such a big part of my own like spiritual awakening, was having this like little amazing powerhouse inside of me. And I really relate to your story too. Like, you were Capricorn sisters, and the Capricorns, we love to overachieve. And so I know for me it was like getting the PhD and then starting the business and then getting married and having a kid and the lake house and la la la. But like each time, like I didn't take a moment when I actually like achieved those things to like receive it and to like really enjoy it and just like enjoy the process of building all those things. And it was almost like I missed it. And it was sometimes like these anticlimactic moments of where I didn't take the time to digest and to like go inwards and to cocoon about like how amazing it is. It was just on, like you said, to the addiction, like what's the next thing that I can, feel worthy about or feel good about, but not actually letting myself do the most important part, which is to feel good. And so that's what I love about the work that you do, is really just about, reclaiming your body and your beauty through pleasure, through presence, through embodiment. And I'd love for you to riff on that for a little bit.
Yeah. And that was like so well reflected back, Megan. Like, you're such a good interviewer and listener. Wow. Yeah. And so it's just like noticing this stuff, right? If we're talking about the body and like our patterns or what we do, what we tend to, right? So it's like, oh, okay, notice that about myself. So that's a thing that I need to just like pay attention to, like kind of all the time, and check myself. And I have my coach to like check me too, to make sure, right? And I think at that time, I didn't really have any one to model for me that there was another way. And so that's what we're doing for people now, right? Like we're modeling that there is another way to get like the things that we want and our desires met. And that's through receiving, embodying, seducing, flirting, like, and for me, that's kind of my truth. And to relate this like to business, I consider that like a part of branding, right? So like the more you are, the more you show up as yourself in your voice, in your body, showing the people the things that you love, the more you start to kind of build out your brand, which is you, the more you start to attract your people, the easier it is to make a sales call with the people you love, the easier it is to invite the people that you love into your programs and what you're doing, right? You're inviting in ease because you're putting out this like truth all over. And it's fun because you're just being you, including messy, mistakes, sloppy, like, oh my gosh, all of that. But you're like, I did that. Like, I made the mistake. Okay. It happened. Everybody watch. But it's so interesting because so many people tell you how refreshing it is to see like mistakes along the way and like ownership of mistakes along the way. That's just part of it. So I hope that answers like a bit of your question.
Yeah, it really does. So we're in the midst of your container, Speak from Your Lips. And I just wanted to share my most favorite of all the different experiences we've had this round has been the rest day.
I'm so glad you said that.
We got to, you know, if you wanted to, like put on your like little lingerie or whatever you felt comfortable in, and you got to like lounge around in sisterhood. And I just had this beautiful image, like you were in, I think where you are now, and you like had your little like tights on, and you just had your legs crossed, and the sun was beaming in, and then you encouraged us to like mostly rest, but of course, you know, if you overachieved like I did a live from a lounge position.
Lounge, yes.
But it was like very chill and soft and smooth and so fun. So just wondering if you could talk one about like the connection between lips and lips, and also just like the importance of slowing down, resting, becoming embodied.
Yeah. And you know, you say like you're an overachiever, but like you got it. That's the thing. Because if you can spend a half an hour, 20 minutes, whatever it is, in rest mode and like drop in, then you just can't help but do like an epic Facebook Live, right? Because you're like, you feel good. You feel like in your body, you've got something to say and share. Like your nerves maybe have calmed down and you're like, I want everybody to see me right now. Like this feels good, right? So it's like you got the lesson within the lesson. So one of the ways that I incorporate this into my business is every Wednesday is a rest and replenish me day. And it took me a little while to get to this because I had to set boundaries with myself and not be like, all right, like I'll do that. I'll take an appointment on Wednesday, like I'll do it, right? But if you take one appointment, it kind of just like messes with your whole day. It just really does. And so now my Wednesdays, I do things, but they're only receiving. So I take a dance class, an embodiment class every Wednesday, and it's a private class just for me and this other woman. And I just receive like all of her attention, all of her love and support, right? And I feel into my body. Of course, after that, if I'm feeling myself and I want to do a Facebook Live, like I will, right? Or like if a client messages me and I feel like super connected so that I can give her advice or feedback or answer her question from a like really embodied place, I will, right? But this is a scheduled day where that full intention is receive. And if I'm giving anything, it's from pure golden pussy overflow pleasure. Like is just from anyone that messages me on Wednesday and gets my attention, like, you're welcome. Because
here first.
because you're getting a lot of good attention that day from a golden crystal, right? Doing that call was really edgy, that call in Lips to Lips with you all, where I was like, all right, we're going to rest, because it was a practice of like letting you guys see me in something that I normally do really privately, like lounge around in my lingerie in my office. Some days it's like totally loungewear and like yoga pants too, like fully. And I play my playlist, my music, my down music, and I like lay around on my furry rug and I like feel my body and I feel the fur, all of that. And I like look at myself in the mirror, or I like massage my neck, or I massage my body, right? And this kind of leads into the Lips to Lips call. I have a practice of embodiment where I really have tapped into and really believe in the connection between your face lips and your pussy lips. And they are connector places. They are intimate places. They connect to each other. They connect you to other people in a really intimate way. I mean, sharing your voice and your words and what's in your brain is really intimate. That's why public speaking is so intimate, right? Letting people in. And so I think it's really important for those who identify with pussy to develop and cultivate a practice of connecting the two, right? And feeling that like energy flow from one to the other. And one of the things that I do to help cultivate that is I have a practice of massaging my face lips with oils and chapsticks. And then I'll go down to my jaw and I'll say some beautiful words to myself, and then down my neck, and I'll open up my chest, and I'll go over my breasts and nipples, and I'll go down my belly and womb, down to pussy, and then back up again, right? And I'm really slow. Like I just went through that so fast, but I'm like really slow. And some days I get stuck at a certain part of my body, and that's okay too. And so I just work through that, right? There's an energy that gets stuck there. And if you're a public speaker, if you're doing podcasts or doing things like that, you can incorporate this speaking practice into your prep work. And you might notice that some energy, a lot of times my energy gets stuck in my stomach. And just like you're giving birth, right? Like you might feel like, and you're just like, rubbing it and you're swirling and you're maybe swinging your hips a little bit and you're just like moving this like intense stuck energy down and through your body and maybe out your pussy or out, right? Or back up again. Like there's different things, right? And you'll discover if you decide to try this practice. But if you can do this for a while, it might take you 6 months, okay? It's okay. Might take you a year. Like there's no timeline on this. But if you can like get into this, incorporate this practice into your speaking, then you can notice things about yourself before you even start to speak and where that energy is stuck. And then you might notice like, okay, I got to my stomach. And now that I'm speaking, I'm also noticing like there's a heaviness in my stomach, right? Or if you're in flow, might be like, all right, I'm in flow, lips to lips, lips to lips. Like I'm feeling good about my speaking. My body feels good and settled and connected. My pussy wisdom can inform my lips, my speaking lips. And so that's kind of the goal, is to get to the point where you trust what I call my most powerful business confidant is my pussy. I can trust her to also run my speaking for me too. And I don't need to know exactly what I'm going to say in 10 minutes. I can trust what she's going to tell me right now. How does that sound? How's all that? I said a lot.
It's
So
so
how
good. You got me like mesmerized. I'm like moving with you. I'm feeling it. You know, it reminds me of when I was doing hypnobirthing with childbirth. And that was one of the things they said was, you know, really just like relax the jaw. And I can tell you from my work with women with trauma, you know, a lot of times we're either the forced smile or the tight jaw. And so I love that practice of like loosening. You know, I spend a lot of time in my Fearless Feminine Academy opening the throat chakra so we can speak from our truth. And then it like kind of took me back to when I was in grad school. I actually was in the vagina monologues and I had the best monologue where you do all the orgasms. And from that time on, I was like obsessed with pussy. And then it came back around like 10 years later with all the pussy and pleasure communities. And so for people who are like not acquainted with pussy power and how like pussy run business, like tell us more about that.
Ooh, okay. Yeah. So I was mentioning before, like one of my biggest confidants in my business, one of my advisors is Pussy. And for me, that's physical, spiritual, emotional, like all of it, right? So and I happen to come into my business already having that connection. And so this is my story. I know for some, we need to work on that connection, and that's completely fine and okay and not a big deal and so possible. But what I hadn't done was bring that trust and knowing. Like it was all good in my sex life. It was all good in my like personal life, like my parenting, like all of that. But I hadn't crossed that bridge into allowing it into my business because I had never heard of that before my coach started talking about it. And and prior to that, I'd been trying to run my business from different ways. And I had been like, you know, my coaches like hated me. They're like, how come you're not listening to me? And like, why aren't you doing what I say? Or like I would fight, you know, like end a contract with a coach because like, I was like, this is like BS. Like you're trying to like make me do all these things that don't feel good. Right. And it just kept not working in business for me. But then as soon as I hired this coach that was pussy based, I was like, ta-da! And then my business like exploded. So that was like the secret sauce for me. And it can be as simple as needing to make a decision. Not as simple as, that's not true. It can be something that might seem as simple as I have a question about my business. And it's like, instead of looking at all the options and like analyzing everything for days, it's like, wait, no, slow down, get to a place of like neutralness in my system, and then check in with Pussy to see if there's an internal or external yes or no for this decision. And sometimes you need to really like slow down depending on where you're at and what's happening. And sometimes it's just like yes or no. And you just know. And a lot of times when it's quick like that, it might feel edgy. And you might have like a lot of naysayers. Like I've had so many naysayers that have been like, don't do that. And then I have to really stand in my truth and keep checking in with Pussy again and again. But it's a process of like trusting, and you might call it like instincts, intuition, gut, heart, those types of things, guides. But for me, it literally is what I'm now referring to as my golden pussy.
So I'm curious for people who maybe are more on like the dry pussy syndrome side of things and they're wanting to get to golden pussyhood. uh, what, what's the process of getting like reacquainted with her? You know, what if you ask for the yes or no and it's like silence? Like how do we like befriend her again and like honor her and like rise her to, you know, ruling status?
Oh, I love it. Oh my goodness, your words. So I personally am not a sex coach, right? And being a pussy-based business coach, there are things that I can support with. So if it's like a really big thing, like, oh my gosh, allow yourself to hire one of these like beautiful coaches that are out there, and this is like their life work, and they can really dig into it with you. So that would be like my permission slip to you to like invest in yourself, right? But if like there's an inkling of it and you're like, I'm like feeling some kind of way, like I can access this with the guide of like a business coach who's focused on pussy, it's just simple steps. Simple steps, like simple yes, no questions for her. Start with basics. See if there's even a inkling of a connection to give you advice or answers on simple things like, do I want to eat that carrot? Yes or no, right? Do I want to take a bath? Would that be supportive for me right now? And just like slow down and listen. Maybe close your eyes. Maybe touch her. Maybe touch her over the underwear is like a lot of what I suggest, because sometimes that just needs to happen first, over the clothes, right? Over a blanket, like whatever you need, right? And I'm
How you doing?
yeah, however you got to do it. And I'm also a big fan of baths. We mentioned that earlier. And part of my bath time is holding space for her. So I've even heard people like name their pussy before. I've heard of that before. That was like a really cool idea, right? And giving her like some space and an identity. And I think the key too is like slowness, because it's almost like the slower you go, all of a sudden you hit this like switch, and it's like the ball starts to roll and you just start to like go, 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 go. And then like all of that work you've been doing slowly sort of starts to come through and help with the momentum of the ball rolling forward once it happens. But again, I'm not a sex coach, so I can't like fully like go into the whole thing. These are just like my personal practices and everything. And then I actually have like a meditation that I'm happy to like give people, that people have told me they've had breakthroughs with. And it's just part of my story is that I had 3 children vaginally, and each time I had excruciating pain afterwards, and I had to go to physical therapy. And the first time I went to physical therapy for 9 months, like once or twice a week. So I'm telling you, sometimes, and I needed to get back into my relationship with pussy. So sometimes it can take a long time. So all of that. And when you're bringing it into your business, there's other things and hurdles that you need to jump over and through and, you know, hold hands with your coach on, because bringing it into business is almost like one of those last places where we need to infiltrate this way of being, right? Because like there's a lot of beautiful and amazing sex coaches out there now and relationship coaches, but like there's not a ton of business coaches teaching this. And so we're like on the cutting edge here because it's edgy.
I love that. And I think, in my mind, that's definitely part of the divine feminine rising is, like honoring our intuition, our emotions, our body, our sexuality, all of these things as sacred. So I know that that's a big passion of yours as well. So what do you think, like, what is your wish for the world as far as this divine feminine energy rising?
Oh my gosh, that's such a good question. Okay. So the thing that pussy tells me right away is that my wish is for sovereignty.
Mm-hmm.
And what that means is for you to really know that you're the expert in the room of yourself and of your body and of your desires. You are the one who knows what's best for you. This is like my legacy for my children even, right? Like this is what I'm raising them to think like and be like. And this includes in your business, this includes in your household, this includes in your relationships and the way you show up online and the way you move your body and the way you choose to speak and express, right? Like, I want you to know that you know what's best for you. And this includes in your business, right? And I say a lot of times what's good for you is good for your people, meaning like I have some clients that are like, I just need like rest. I need like a bath, like you were saying. I'm like, perfect. If you need rest, then probably your people do too. And if you're really attuned to your clients and your followers, then you're going to know that. And then you're going to start talking about rest. And then you might be doing a Facebook Live from the bathtub all of a sudden and talking about like how to relax, right? And then your people are like, what? I can do a Facebook Live from the bathtub? What? I can rest? What?
I love that. It reminds me of, I saw a keynote speaker and she was talking about busy being the new 4-letter word. And I was like, after that, I was like, you can sell me anything, because I think a lot of women have this superwoman syndrome where they want to be everything, do everything. And we just kind of, tend to everyone except ourselves. And so I love that you really encourage slowing down, prioritizing pleasure, and you do some edgy stuff, like really being seen, like doing a live in the bathtub. So tell me a little bit about like the power of the feminine gaze and what you want for women to reclaim as we're moving into our sovereignty.
The power of the feminine gaze. Yeah. When you do these radical moves, you kind of call people to reveal themselves sometimes. Like when you're in the tub, you might get some criticism for that, right? If that's your truth, right? I'm not saying you need to be in the tub, but like that's my truth, right? By doing that, I've totally had people be like, that's, awful. And how are you doing this? And you're not honoring yourself. I'm like, whoa, it's like literally the opposite. I'm like so comfortable in myself that I'm okay with this. Right. Or you'll get the like lurkers, right? Like the creepers. And so you just block those people and you just move on. Right. So you'll call people to kind of reveal themselves, including your biggest fans. And they'll be like, thank you. And they'll be sending you messages. And they'll be like, I'm not there yet. I'm like 100 steps from there. But just seeing you do that makes me want to just post something on Facebook. Like if Crystal's sitting in the bath doing a Facebook Live, I can certainly post that one post I've been sitting on for 2 weeks, right? A big piece of what I do is I model, and then people get permission through my modeling. So I just show up and I'm myself again and again. And then that's how humans learn anyways, right? I mean, you probably have stuff to say about like the way the brain learns, and through copying, through mimicking, through watching and seeing. And it's interesting for me, and it took me a while to figure this out, like why I'm so comfortable with being watched, because not everybody is that. But I was born to very young parents. My parents were teenagers. And so they lived with their parents. So I constantly had, and they each had a brother or a sister. So I constantly had 4 adults watching me my whole life. Like I was born into like a fish bubble, like all eyes on me. And so I'm like, oh, this is why I'm like also comfortable with teaching this way, through this methodology of modeling. So that was a little tangent for you on like how I do my coaching, and how I do like my teaching is through modeling. But I know that I have coached many people who didn't grow up that way to start to feel comfortable. And the feminine gaze is a big piece of this. And what I recommend is starting slow and small. So like a Speak from Your Lips course, or like your courses, right? Where it's like a smaller group program and you're in a tighter container and you're making edgy moves and pushing your edges in a smaller, safer container. And then you just build and you build out. And then you might do it in a Facebook group for a while. And you're like, cool, got this. And then you might do it on your personal wall and just so on, right? So it's just kind of like widening that safer space for yourself. And then having tools to support yourself when the haters show up, or when there's crickets, or the vulnerability hangover, and like all of that. And you can do that through sisterhood and your own like vulnerability visibility practices.
I love that so much. And what it makes me think of is I should try to say to myself, if I see something that triggers me, like, don't hate her, be her, And I think you talk a lot about like comparisonitis and like the sisterhood wound. And that's been like so powerful for me because we all have them. And, I feel like it's such a force of patriarchy to tear each other down. And so it's just so powerful when we can see someone like yourself and like, all the women in our community, like sort of rise up and then really like celebrate each woman as she claims her golden pussy status. So tell us, where do we find you? What are you selling? Will you sell to us?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Speaking
Yep.
of golden pussies, I'm currently running the Golden Pussy Revolution, which is my mastermind. So doors are open now. I think we're like 50% full, but like also probably going to be like 75% full by tomorrow. So there's like movement happening. And I'm really calling in the women that are identifying with me and my style of coaching and who I am, right? So my particular flavor, because there's a bunch of like fabulous coaches. And if you don't identify with me, that's fine. But if you do, slide into my DMs. You have permission right now. Sometimes they get overloaded, but right now you have permission to slide on into my DMs. That's probably the best way. You could also email me at crystallangen@gmail.com. That's like the slower way if you're feeling a little shy. And Facebook friend me, of course. My website is crystallangen.com. So I try to keep everything easy. And then my Facebook is Crystal Avila Langen. And the Golden Pussy Revolution Mastermind is for those who want to lead a pleasure-based business. So you have assignments like pleasure first. We celebrate your sold out mastermind before you have the evidence. Why are we going to hold celebration till the end? Right? It's about being in deep sisterhood and showing up. I'm keeping them really small pods. They're pods of 5. So only 5 women. You get lots of attention and no hiding. So if you're ready to stop hiding, you're sick of it, and you want to be seen and get lots of attention, I have that too. We have group coaching calls. I'm going to be teaching some master classes on sales. Because hello, sales queen here. I love sales. Sales is not scary to me. It's an intimate relationship, and that I will walk you through. Sales, branding, visibility, taking up space, like all of that stuff. And it's for 7 months. And I'm really calling through like those women too that are trusting their intuition. And if they're like, oh, I feel attracted, I'm going to send her a message. Then I'm like, that tells me something about you. That tells me you're ready to start doing that in your business too. Not just with the mastermind, but your business and calling in your clients and your money and your next levels, because you're trusting that like inkling, that intuition, that pussy wink. Did you like that? I came straight from pussy.
I remember when I signed up for the discovery call for your mastermind, and you had said you were asking about desires, and I said I desire to be in your mastermind, and I remember hopping on in like total frenetic, frazzled mom moment of like, and you were just like, you just kind of like leaned in and you flirted and you were like, where did you come from? Oh my God, I love it. And I was hooked. And you won't regret it. It's an amazing experience, and it will just zhuzh up your golden pussyhood, divine feminine goddess even more than she already is. And you can join all of us in the divine feminine revolution. We'll catch you later. Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Divine Feminine Revolution podcast. Make sure to subscribe and leave a 5-star review. Want to keep the conversation flowing? Find us on Facebook at the Divine Feminine Revolution Facebook group, where revolutionary women gather to listen to their hearts, monetize their gifts, and change the world.